Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of the town of Stephenville, where community conversations happen. I'm Marilee Joy Castillo, Communications Manager at the town. This podcast takes place in the chamber of Town Hall, where we share updates, ideas, and information about what's happening in our community. Joining me today is Susan Fowlow, candidate running for mayor in the upcoming municipal election. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
So, Susan, why don't you first give everyone just a little preamble about yourself?
Okay. As you know, I'm Susan Fowlow. I was going to say born and raised in Stephenville, but I actually didn't move here till I was 3. But I was raised in Stephenville, went away for school, loved being raised in Stephenville, loved the community, was very involved always. And when I finished school, I had an opportunity to come back to work in Stephenville, and I grabbed that opportunity, and I've been here ever since. I've raised my family here. My grandkids come here to visit, and my education, I guess, or my history as well, is in post-secondary education mostly, although I started in high school teaching and I'm back doing some subbing now in different levels from kindergarten to high school, which is a lot of fun. But the majority of my career was spent in adult education, working with most often vulnerable populations. I started out in special services. I moved into a community studies or community leadership development program as an instructor and worked with students, I guess, on how to work with people who needed help and how to develop strong communities. So that kind of combination of skills, I guess, is what brought me to an interest in the municipal politics.
Excellent. And I guess the first real question I have for you is, what made you decide to want to run for mayor? I know you've been involved with municipal politics previously.
Yeah.
What made you decide that you wanted to make the run for mayor?
Well, I think the stars kind of aligned back in 2016 when I was successful in becoming a council member and became the deputy mayor. My family was pretty well raised. I had one child left finishing up high school, and then she would go off to university and I would retire midway through. So I've been retired since 2019, and so I have the time. And my experience on council, despite what some people think, because they tend to only see the more malicious comments on Facebook, there's a lot of really, really positive experience on council in so many ways. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience on council as deputy mayor, but what I discovered very early on is that I didn't know much about municipal politics, and it was going to take some time to learn it. And what I thought I knew sometimes wasn't even correct. And so at the end of the first term, I felt confident that I was able to contribute more. And so I ran and was deputy mayor for a second term. And when our mayor announced, I guess, that he was not going to run for re-election, I felt that I was ready to step up and lead. And so I decided that I would offer myself as mayor.
What do you think, if you're elected, some of your priorities are for the town?
I guess I'm kind of I look at things from a community development perspective. And again, that's my educational background. And communities only grow when we develop all parts of our community, all of our resources. And our resources can be anything from business and economic resources to our human capital, right? And so as much as we think about, we need to get something here, we need to get industry here, we need to get businesses here for money to come in to form the tax base and so on, I think it's also important to recognize that if we don't help the people in the community become the best versions of themselves, I guess they can, then we can't provide a really healthy workforce for those kind of economic boom times. And so for me, it's really important that nobody is left behind as we create a strategic plan and as we follow the plan that we've developed. And so for me, that means that we know people are unhoused here, and we know they're unhoused across Canada, and we know that's become a crisis, and Stephenville is no different. But I think the housing crisis is one that we need to continue to look at as a major priority.
And no, I was just going to say, actually, that is one of the questions that I was going to move into. So if you'd like to, because I was interested to see what your thoughts were on addressing housing availability and affordability here in Stephenville. So if you'd like to touch on that.
Sure. Well, I think we've made a fantastic start. And when I say that, one of the things that people who know me will know is that I'm very much about a collaborative approach. I'm very much about a grassroots approach. And I guess in some ways, I'm not very political, which is sometimes is a good thing. But for me, it's all about recognizing who the experts are. And the experts aren't always the people with the highest education who've read the books and written the policies, but in fact, often the experts are the people who have the lived experience, right? And so we, as a town, developed a facilitated kind of process and had a day where we asked people to come in and really talk about what they needed in terms of housing and other things. And from there, I think we got a much better picture of the fact of what we suspected anyway. But I think it was easy to recognize that we need more housing and we need more mixed development housing in this area. We have people who have low incomes, who are struggling to find affordable housing. We have seniors on fixed incomes as well who are struggling. We have people who are professionals on pensions who are struggling to find suitable housing. We have people with disabilities and so on. So what we're looking at is a part of a plan to see the development of mixed housing development where we will be able to try to provide housing for all different groups of people and, looking to contractors to see what they might be able to provide, what their needs might be. And mostly as well, we've been looking to government programs and funding to see what funding is out there, both for us, but also to keep our contractors and so on updated on what they might avail of.
Perfect. Thank you. And I guess if you are elected, what are some of the things that you would like to see happen here in Stephenville over the next 4 years during your term as mayor?
It's really difficult to kind of say this is what I want to happen or this is what I will do, because I think what people need to recognize is the mayor is one voice and one vote among a collective council of 7 people, right? The difference is the mayor tends to be the person who speaks on behalf of council, who attends some of the functions as a representative of council. But the mayor is in no way the boss of council or the decision maker on council. And so, for me to say this is what we're going to do would be basically, lying, I guess, to people. What I would like to see the continuation of a strategic plan that we've put in place. You'll hear me say plan a lot because I think if you don't know where you're going, then you have no idea how close you are or when you get there or where you get there. And so I'm a huge proponent of strategic plans so that anybody who comes to Stephenville can say what's going to happen in the next few years, and we can show them exactly what we're working towards. And as people come into town and ask to set up business or to set up something, we can show them again, here's where we're headed. Does this fit with what you see? And are there ways in which you can even contribute on a civic level, to see things happen. We've grown our recreation department, which I think is critical. We've got an aging population. We all know that as we age, it becomes more and more important to stay well. And staying well is often about having access to things that allow us to improve both our physical and our mental health. And so I'm a huge supporter of recreation and wellness. I'm a fan of the European way of living, and I often jokingly say to our recreation and wellness manager, we need to become more European. And what I mean by that is I'd love to see more walking trails, more bike trails, more movement towards getting people out and moving, access to bikes, continued development of our lending library, all those things. Obviously, I want a opportunity for people to have meaningful employment. And so obviously continuing to look for opportunities to bring in different groups or organizations who express interest in the town, who have plans or ideas. I think small business is a really critical piece to a community the size of Stephenville. And as much as it would be great to bring in these great big companies that employ hundreds and thousands of people, it would be equally as good to support and see the development of smaller businesses that, support 7 or 8, 5 or 6, 2 or 3 employees, so that the people here have a meaningful job and meaningful wages. And other than that, I think for me, the priority is to continue to connect the dots, because I see the town as the connector in all kinds of social agencies, nonprofit organizations, as well as business and so on, so that we're able to continue as a town to stay connected with organizations and agencies and put people in touch with the appropriate agencies and organizations so that we're working as one large collective group.
Excellent. And what experiences and qualities do you feel that makes you the best candidate to lead the town in the position of mayor?
Well, I certainly have a lot of experience both in leadership roles and also as an instructor of courses like leadership development, which was one of the many courses that I taught through the years. I've been very involved in the community throughout my years on both as a coach, as a choir director. I've been involved with the schools, doing different programs with the schools, churches, Girl Guides, brownies. I've kind of been connected with it all. And I think that speaks to really a need that I have when I identify a gap to try to do something to fill the gap. And so I do think I have very good leadership abilities. I think I have some good connections, and I've made more. I think I'm I don't think I know, I'm confident and comfortable in all kinds of situations. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten perhaps a little bit too confident in some situations, or at least the filters come off sometimes. But if something has to be said, or if something is the right thing to do, I have no qualms in pointing that out to anybody. And I think the other thing that the last 8 years has taught me, thanks to social media, is that I do have a resilience that I wasn't even sure that I had, that ability to sometimes read some of the ugly things I'm supposedly have done, deal with things diplomatically, recognize that it's not the right time to respond to somebody who doesn't want to hear the right answer, and so on. So I think all those things will serve well in the position of mayor, because obviously we're going to come across those things as well.
For sure. And how do you plan on making council decisions more open and transparent to residents?
Well, I think we have certainly tried to become open and transparent. We obviously have certain guidelines that we have to follow that keep us open and transparent in terms of keeping our meetings public and so on. So we're answering to a number of people, but you probably know for sure that communication to me is most critical in any organization of this size. And I think a communication via podcasts, communication via a website that's kept up to date and so on, by using the different forms of social media, email, those kinds of things. We've had some talks about the fact that some people don't use social media and they miss radio and so on. And we've been in discussions with and talked about maybe having a radio station that is open to this area so that we can get those broadcasts happening and so on. And the other piece for me around communication that I think is really critical is I would like to see us have a weekly something that's a did you know? Because I think what's critical for people is that they need to understand how council works, what guides our work, but also what restricts the work that we're trying to do. And that is an understanding of who we are, what we can do and what we can't do. So I would like to see a kind of a teaching component where each week we picked something and said, did you know that in order for a decision to be made, this has to happen? Or did you know that there's a policy that although we would like to do this, we're unable to do it because of this? So that people, before they jump to conclusions like you don't want to do it or you didn't try, they recognize that sometimes we are restricted or held by policies that are municipal, sometimes they're provincial, sometimes they're federal. And sometimes they're policies that, we've decided, but I think people need to know those and understand those so that they can think through some of the discussions that they're having with their friends and their family and even with the town.
That's right. And what role do you think that the town should play in supporting services such as healthcare, education, emergency preparedness?
Well, obviously, we can't make decisions around any of the, I guess, components of provincial government or federal government. So we can't decide that we're going to change this at the hospital and it changes, or, we're not going to take as many inmates into prison or whatever. I mean, those aren't our decisions. But I think what's really critical for us is that we maintain a very strong advocacy role. And that means we need our ear to the ground with our citizens who help us stay informed as to what the issues are when it comes to things like education, healthcare, seniors, et cetera, et cetera. Once we understand those issues, then I think our role is to keep a very open line with our MHAs, with ministers, and ultimately with the premier. And again, I've said sometimes we've been a little soft with our responses to certain things that, as we've watched things possibly leave the community and stuff, and we've fought a little and then said, no, we'll let it go. And I think there comes a point when we know it's not the right thing to do, we need to be more vocal and, be as clear with government as possible that we're not going to let this quietly happen. And there's ways to do that where you don't have to destroy a relationship with government, right? So, yeah.
Okay. And do you see many opportunities for more regional collaboration with surrounding communities throughout Bay St. George?
I absolutely do. I think, we recognize Stephenville as the hub. And in recognizing that, we also have to recognize that if communities around us don't grow, then we don't grow either, and vice versa. And so I think we provide support to each other now, and we try to work together, but I think there's also a lot more that we could do together. If we look at some of the projects that are on the horizon, they're not all going to come to Stephenville. We look at things even like Atlas Salt, for example. I mean, if that starts to happen out in St. George's, then that's fabulous for Stephenville. And it's fabulous for St. George's, and it's fabulous for Stephenville Crossing, and so on. So I think it's really critical for us to recognize that as rural communities become smaller and smaller, and that's the reality, that's the statistic. It's not Susan saying it unfairly. Our rural communities are aging out, and we don't have a lot of young people coming behind. We're going to be expected to try to provide similar levels of service to people with a much smaller tax base. And the only way we're going to be able to provide anything is by working together as communities.
Thank you. Just a couple of more questions that we have before we finish off today. I'd like to hear maybe some of your plans for community and economic development and other municipal infrastructure.
Okay. Again, my plans are probably not my plans. They're more about me being familiar with the direction we're going as a town. And I guess to go back to what made you decide to run for mayor, I feel like we're moving in the right direction. I like the direction we're moving. I think it's an inclusive and accessible direction. And so I want to see that stuff continue. That means that we continue to upgrade our infrastructure through different programs, as we've been doing. That certain roads get done every summer, and we put in where we can for municipal funding to upgrade different roads. And we've employed an asset mapping kind of approach. We know where the oldest infrastructure is, and so we're trying to strategically replace things based on age and so on. And so that will continue. There are certain areas where we have aging infrastructure at intersections and so on, where we may be considering other ways to look at intersections, like roundabouts, which some people want to hear and others don't. But roundabouts can be as simple or as complicated as the size of your community. So here, I don't think they would be as complicated as some people fear. Our treatment plant is second to none. We are continuing to monitor our water systems, our sewer systems, our treatment systems, all of those things. And I think we are also very cognizant of staying as green as we can and using environmentally friendly techniques and so on. I want to keep moving in that direction, continue with green spaces and wellness spaces. And what else? Well, that's also from the community side of thing, and I've already said that, is to really stay connected with our community agencies and organizations. We have a lot of nonprofit organizations in this town who do tremendous work, who I guess never get the accolades that they really deserve in terms of the work they're doing. And some of them do grassroots work so well that other people don't even know that it exists, because it's just something we've gotten used to seeing. But I think that work has to continue, and we have to continue to support that. I'm a very big proponent of the development of a community food center, which is a bit bigger than the concept of a community food bank. But I've been pushing that forward, and I'm hoping that that will continue to be something that stays on the agenda until a group is able to pick it up and go with it. And I think that will provide tremendous support for people. I want to see the development of our green spaces in terms of more trees planted, but trees that are perhaps fruit bearing, those kinds of things, so that we move towards more healthy, both physically and mentally, healthy, sustainable community that people hear about and they want to come and live here.
Excellent. And I guess finally, what message would you like to share directly with the people of Stephenville about why they should vote for you as mayor?
Well, I certainly am asking for the support of the citizens of Stephenville. As I said before, I'm from here. I was raised here. I raised my family here. I've probably coached your children, taught your children. I've probably coached children. I've probably coached your parents. I've been involved and through theater and all kinds of things. I'm very, very passionate about the community. I feel like I have the knowledge, and I'd be remiss if I didn't add the gender piece. And I think that's really important too, that women bring a different approach and a different view to the table. And if we look at our candidates for mayor and our candidates for council, there's one female two for council and one for mayor. And I think those voices are really, really important. So because men bring a perspective to the table too, but we can balance each other out, which I think is really important. And again, I think I'm at that place in my life where I have the time, I have the commitment and the knowledge. My approach is collaborative. I'm a grassroots person. I don't lose sight of the bottom when I'm standing at the top.
Excellent. Well, Susan, I want to thank you so much for coming in here and taking the time today to answer these very important questions that I feel the residents need the answers to in helping them make informed decisions. And we certainly wish you the best of luck in the upcoming municipal election.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. So this concludes this episode of Town Talk. Thank you very much to Susan Fowlow, candidate running for mayor in the upcoming municipal election. And we will have more candidates coming up very soon here on Town Talk.